everybody, and welcome back to the 6th round of the Player1 Sim Gear Super Formula Lights Championship, supported by Everything Simulated. We come to Snetterton for what is going to be the final sprint round of our season. A 15-minute opening race, followed by a 30-minute feature coming up a little bit later tonight. After last week's race, where Sebastian Eskandari took win number 4 of the season, he's now got a championship lead that is just a little bit larger, that little bit more comfortable heading into those final 3 rounds, but it's far from over. Over the course of the next 3 weeks, we'll obviously decide another champion. It looks like it's going to be another new champion as well, unless Mark Hilly can pull off a real surprise and defend his title for all the way down in 4th. Myself, Ewan O'Leary, and Reece Gardner will take you through the action with George Cook behind the cameras as always. And Reece, we come to Snetterton, which is a slightly unusual circuit in the east of England. I've been told as well that the weather, again, is not for the first time this season going to play a role.
Yeah, certainly. We're currently dealing with a drying track in qualifying, which is really forcing the drivers to try some alternate lines and be careful where they place their cars. But even in the dry, Snetterton is, as you say, quite an unusual circuit, but that's not a bad thing. It is a former airfield circuit, as are many in the United Kingdom, and recently, as recently as 2012 or so, had its layout extended to create that infield loop that you see on the map. What results is a technical circuit that nonetheless has plenty of high-speed corners you really got to rag the car through.
Yeah, and typically for the British Isles, it's going to rain as well at various points throughout the night. So we'll look forward to that. But anyway, these are the championship standings heading into this round. The gap currently for Eskandari, 63 points over Jackson Rihanna, who is currently in 2nd, and then Craig Edwards, who is 3rd. He was, of course, in 2nd before the last couple of weeks, Edwards, but hasn't scored too many points, particularly in the last couple of weeks. Mark Hilly is 4th ahead of Danny Davison, and it does get pretty tight from there on. Thomas Hinds just outside the top 5 now, with Kane Ryder, Aidan Coote, Tom Donahue, Alex Stevens, all part of the top 10. Stevens actually tied with Scott Bartide, the Season 2 champion. So it's all very close outside of that, but Eskandari leading by a sort of comfortable margin. Alexi Watson is the new championship leader in the silver class. Or I should say, still is the championship leader in the silver class. Miguel Costa Texera couldn't quite get over him in the last race. 3 points between them only. Chris Little 10 points back. Marcus Knitska is 19 back, and Tristan McLaren rather rounds out the top 5. He's 24 back at the moment, and the gaps don't get much larger to Anthony Bay or Matt Tesoro than they do, though, outside of the top 7. So a very close silver class this season, and yeah, that's going to be interesting to see how it develops. Let's have a look though at the starting grid ready for race 1 tonight, and it's Sebastian Eskandari on pole. No surprise there, but the big surprise is 4th pole of the season, by the way. The big surprise, James Casser is on the front row. Thomas Hinds and Danny Davison then on row 2 behind, with reigning champion Mark Hilly in 5th place, and Jackson Rihanna in 6th place behind that. Brody McConkey is 7th ahead of Scott Bartine in 8th. Sam Mort, who's just moved to Team Max Boost, is alongside Craig Edwards, rounding out the top 10. So all of those in the top 4 in the championship, inside the top 10. Madeline McGee and Angus Milne then on row 6 at a Jackie Chung, who's taken silver pole, at a Dion O'Neill. Tom Donahue and Aidan Coote then on row 8, together with Marcus Knitska in 17th at a Kane Ryder. Matthew Vincent Borg, then Ryan Borg, round out the top 20. Anthony Bate is 3rd in silver. Jake Robillard then on the first all-silver row, 22nd. Alex Stevens and Alexia Watson on row 12, ahead of Vaughan Ryder and Mitchell Albert. Look at the time gaps back here, by the way. Tristan McLaren and Nathan Verney on row 14, ahead of Dylan Little and Dan Ackland, who round out the top 30. And that should be it, apart from Doug Gowans, who's at the very back end of the field, and may well start this race. He didn't qualify, though, by the looks of things. What a lap that is from James Casser, Reach. Not a driver you'd expect to stay on the front row.
No, absolutely. I think either he's turned into an absolute freak in between sessions, or he was lapping early on in practice when the track was still quite wet. He was only 18th in practice, so to come out with a time like that is pretty significant. The only problem's going to be that, I guess for Sebastian Eskandari, he's going to be starting on the wet side of this grid. You can clearly see that dry line there with Casa in prime position to get a lightning start here, as with just about everyone behind him. We'll have to wait and see how this goes.
Yeah, we certainly will. As the lights come on here from Snetterton, Sam Mortars has elected to stop from the pit lane, by the way. There you can see him on the left-hand side. The green flag waiting for 15 minutes. So Snetterton on the way. And one of the man's for his cars goes nowhere in the midfield there. Absolutely nowhere. And that is Madeline McGee, unfortunately, who was just inside the top 10 before, certainly outside of it now. Saul side by side through turn one. And James Castor's taken the lead. An unbelievable start, but he's gone too deep into turn two. Oh, Eskandari looks down the inside of him there. He can't quite get through, and James Castor leads on the opening lap.
That was interesting from Sebastian Eskandari. As soon as he got rolling, he tried to move over onto the dry line, but Casa did not let him get onto it. Now it is on for the lead, and I think Casa's going to have the race of his life here, defending from the championship leader. This is going to be a crazy race, especially considering there's so little grip off that dry line. Pretty much everyone has formed into single file now, and I don't see that changing anytime soon.
No, especially with the line that we've got. Edwards and Bartine have both got meatball flags. They seem to have made contact with each other, and that is one of our big contenders, Craig Edwards, who is dropping further and further away in these recent weeks of the championship. 101 points away at the start of tonight, and here it is. You can see them all fighting for the dry line again here. Bartine actually gets hit by Edwards in towards turn one. Oh, and then he ramps over him over the top and towards the barrier. You don't actually often see them hit the barrier through there, but he's managed it. Eskandari, meantime, is wide, and Danny Davison doesn't quite get down the inside of him there. Castor's got a 1.5 second lead, and now Davison goes wide. Here comes Thomas Hinds, and Jackson Rihanna trying to take advantage.
End of lap one, Thomas Hinds qualified in third place. Now he'll get back into third, but they're 3 wide on the way into turn one. Who's going to back out of this one? Certainly not Jackson Rihanna, who moves through into third place now. You could really see how much the likes of Davison and Hinds were having to tiptoe their way there. And Brody McConkey making the move on Hinds just out of frame there, taking advantage of the difficulties offline here. It looks like Mark Healy has also moved past Thomas Hinds as well. I think you're going to be seeing a lot of jigging around of this former qualifying order, and just because when they go a little bit wide, they're on that wet side of the racetrack. There's no grip out there, so you go even slightly beyond those limits, you are done.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's yeah, maybe going to take away a little bit from the side-by-side that we could see. Maybe race 2 will have a little bit more of that. It looks like it's going to be the opposite way round. So a wetter circuit at the beginning, I think, is what race 2 is bound to be like, but no rain during the race. We may well see rain during this race, but let's see. Hilly down the inside, that's risky. Oh, on the wet stuff, and he hits McConkey there, but it doesn't affect anybody too much. McConkey gets away with it, and so does Hilly as well. Although, no! McConkey goes for a spin at the very next corner. I'm not sure that's related to the contact at the previous turn, but he does spin out of the top 10.
Yeah, bombhole corner was the one that he spun out in, and the line through there is a little bit wider than you'd expect in these conditions because it's so banked. All of the water collects down low. Looks like Eskandari's finally managed to catch back up to Casa, and he goes for the move into turn one. Meanwhile, we have a new race leader.
A bizarre battle for the lead at the moment, and Casa looks to respond. Oh, he comes steaming down the inside. He's on the wet stuff, though, and Eskandari will just turn underneath him and come straight back through again into the lead of this race. Chung, meantime, seems to have found some trouble in the silver class, and he's in a massive group now with Anthony Bate, who's at the front of it, Alexi Watson, who's at the back of it, and trying to work his way through. And Bate does indeed get past Chung. We'll see how this all started through turn one. Oh, there's drivers coming out the pit lane here. There's a number of them. And he just goes wide. So he, in order to avoid that, and he's not the only one, in order to avoid them, goes wide, and it's actually ended up with him losing the lead, and Anthony Bate now up to 12 leads in silver.
Yeah, turn one is so difficult in these conditions. If you can keep it on the dry line, it is flat out. Drivers were going flat out through there at the end of practice and through qualifying. But once again, you go slightly offline just because of the way pit exit bleeds on to the racing line in the middle of turn one. It's incredibly difficult to nail. And Chung has had further issues. That's in the infield. Looks to me like he tried to get it going but spun, and that's one of the Max Boost cars. Maybe McGee, I'm not quite sure at this point. Max Boost has certainly gone on some rapid expansion over these last couple of weeks. When you told me that Sam Mort had been brought into Max Boost, I thought, yeah, of course he has. They seem to snap up everybody who's super quick at the front of this field.
Yeah, they certainly do. I mean, they're hiring so many people. I was expecting a call actually, but I haven't received one yet. I'll be waiting.
Neither have I.
So, not saying I'm super quick, by the way. In fact, I'm the opposite. Jackson Riada closes into just less than a second behind James Casser now. He's having a strange race at the front, I must admit. It's nearly 2 seconds in front of Eskandari, but in the space of one lap, that came crashing down. And all of a sudden, he's not the leader anymore. Sebastian Eskandari is in a very familiar position. As I mentioned before, it's his 4th pole position of the season. It would be his 5th win should he go on to win it, and he'd move closer and closer to a championship as well, potentially even a championship ceiling moment next week at Sebring. It's certainly going to be possible for him to do that, almost no matter what happens here, because Jackson Riada's drop week is so bad at the opening round of the season at Mexico. Finished in 36th place, which is exactly 0 points, effectively meaning he could lose 100 to Eskandari on any given day, or even 150 on a day like this. And Casa makes a mistake. Oh, he goes straight into Davison as he tries to rejoin. Casa gets straight into Davison, who goes across the grass. He's still across the grass. He might be damaged here. Oh, he certainly is. And Davison is going to have to take a trip to pit lane.
Yeah, look at the rear end on that one. Oh, Casa, the second driver we've seen for the moment. There's probably more who have spun on the way through bomb hole. Yeah, turns in, and it's right there at the dip where the banking is its highest. And poor Davison, I don't think he had any opportunity to react to that one. Casa was just out of control, making heavy contact with the right rear Davison, and that is going to be yet another potential great result, coming to nothing for Danny Davison.
Yeah, that's a shame. I mean, Casa couldn't really have done anything in terms of gathering that up there, but you know, it's one of those things about this circuit. Oh, and there's the rain. Oh. Goodness me. So I knew it was going to arrive at. I thought it was going to be closer to the end than that, to be honest with you. But there you go. It's arrived a little bit early. Now this is not sort of heavy rain by any means. It's just spotty rain is what it's called in our racing. But it's going to have an effect, you'd imagine, because this circuit is kind of quite wet anyway, and you know, there you can see the dry line and so on, but either side of that it's very wet, and so on these dry tyres they might well begin to struggle everywhere. But let's see how they absorb the slight rain that they've got going on at the moment.
That's a move there. Looks like O'Neill making his way past Anthony Bate, who continues to hold on to that silver class lead, but now he's a couple of positions closer to getting overcome by Alexei Watson. Watson is a few seconds behind this pack at the moment, but you have to wonder, now that the rain is coming back here, albeit in small patches, well, there's a response from some. Looks like Thomas Hins, Matthew Vince, and Aidan Coote have all come into pit lane and are going to change to wet tires likely. They are. Is that the right decision though? Is the rain too light?
Yeah, I wonder whether it is. We've already got quite a few drivers on wet tyres, by the way. Danny Davison decided to do it during his pit stop anyway, and so did Marcus Konitska. I think they were drivers making stops anyway, but they decided to just throw a bit of a Hail Mary and put the wets on while they were there. Hinge is the first one out on those wet tyres, trying to get a gauge of the lap times, but I don't think Davison's coming through to complete a full lap at the moment. I think he's coming through to complete his out lap, unless I'm mistaken. Let's see what his time is. 2:04 is 20 seconds off the pace. I don't believe that is just the difference between the dries and the wets. I think he's just getting up to speed. So, yeah. I'm not sure this is the right call, and even if it is, you're going to have to be quicker by a lot to actually make up the amount of time you've just lost making a pit stop.
Yeah, I don't think we've reached that crossover point yet, honestly. You can already see the rain is gone. It's going to come back in a few minutes, but again, only for a lap or two at a time. That's not enough to put enough moisture on the dry line to justify changing to wet tires. They're still having issues keeping the cars on the track, but I would stay on the slicks and take that risk, because yeah, you might have a big off like that we're just seeing from Madeline McGee, but your overall pace is going to be better if you stay on the slicks at the moment. It's only a short race. Oh jeez, Donahue.
That was a big slide as well through the final corner. McGee loses the place to Mitchell Albert, who comes through here, and Thomas Hinds goes past as well on the wet tyres. This is Konitschka though on the wets, as you can see. I mean, it doesn't look too bad actually, but he does go for a spin there. It's not as bad as I was expecting it to look actually through the through the corner. There's Donahue, who is still inside the top 10 here, and just in behind this silver class leader, Anthony Bate, who is at the moment one of our silver class championship contenders, 28 points behind Alexi Watson. But you get a sizable heap of points for a top 10 finish, somewhere close to that disadvantage he's got. So he'll be very pleased to close the gap a little bit. That's Thomas Hinds, the first of those on wet tyres. Difficult to gauge his lap time from first time round, but Davison last time round did have a representative time. It was nearly 6 seconds off Sebastian Eskandari's at the front.
Yeah, and we'll see if Hinsy's able to get some extra time on board here, as Edwards is making a recovery here, just getting past Angus Coote. We saw earlier on the message flash up the top of the screen that Edwards got a 10-second post-race penalty for his contact with Scott Bartine, turn 1, lap 1. So this result is not going to count for much for Fredo, but I get the feeling he's going to come back with a vengeance in race 2. Don't forget, we have another 30-minute race coming up after this with its own qualifying session. So that's a second chance that a lot of drivers will grab with both hands.
Absolutely. And maybe a drier session as well in terms of the other line, although it is going to rain a little bit before qualifying as well, so it's just on and off rain all night tonight. Oh dear, we've got multiple drivers off the circuit, by the way. One of them is Madeline McGee with no rear wing. O'Neill's off the circuit. Hilly's still off the circuit as well. I think Milne is having trouble, and maybe now we've reached the tipping point. Bate goes around. He's the silver class leader. And I just wonder whether these wet tyres might start to come into this now. Texamiliana's off the road. This is starting to become heavy rain almost. And the dry tyres are struggling to cope.
Yeah, I can see that Thomas Hinds' pace has gotten a lot closer to those up the front this lap, and you can clearly see with that patch of rain that's come through, it was a bit heavier than the last one. You can't see the dry line anymore, and spray is being kicked up by the cars on the racing line. So I think we have reached that tipping point there. Donahue going off there, letting Kane Ryder through, who himself is still on slicks. Everyone in the top 10 still on slick tyres, with Thomas Hinds in 11th being the leader of the cars that have pitted for wets. I think this late in the race, we're only going to have 1.5 laps to go or so for Eskandari. In fact, he's coming up to the white flag now. It's too late to change to the wets. So yeah, it looks to me like this is where everyone's going to stand at the moment. Hinsey might make some big gains here.
Yeah, we'll see how far he can get up the field here, but I'm not sure even at this stage he can do it. Oh, Rihanna's off through the final corner, I think. Yeah, he was really close to Eskandari and starting to put some pressure on him before the final lap, but that's not going to happen anymore.
Eskandari's around!
Oh, he is! Sebastian Eskandari goes off into turn 1, is that, or 2? No, it is turn 1, and here comes Rihanna. Oh, he's going to be blocked. He's going to be blocked by Eskandari, and he gives up the dry line as a result. Oh, Rihanna's got it wrong now. Oh, it's a topsy-turvy battle for the lead, which has seen both of the top two off at least twice in these last few moments. It's going to be about tiptoeing to the finish for these two.
How on earth has Angus Milne gotten into third meanwhile? It looks like it might
he's off
be...
again.
Oh, dearie me. Eskandari is really struggling, and Rihanna's going to go back through to the lead. There's been some huge gains from drivers behind. These two are just holding on now. They're going to slide their way to the finish here, Ewan. I've never seen this happen before.
And watch out for Thomas Hinds, by the way. He's not actually that far back. And Eskandari spins properly this time. Rihanna's just going to keep this on the circuit and he'll win this race. Oh my goodness, Eskandari goes for a big spin here. And Angus Milne, to answer your question, by the way, I think he's just tiptoed his way better than the rest. I've not seen him go off yet, and he's about the only driver in the top 10 who hasn't.
Yeah, honestly, this is great from Angus Milne. If he can, he's snapping. Whoa. If he can keep this together, that is going to be an exercise in caution paying off, and he'll get a podium out of this one. He just needs to hold on for the rest of the lap. Hinds is now up to 4th. He's just passed Kane Ryder, and so I don't think there's enough time for him to catch up to Milne and Eskandari, but man, what a crazy last lap to this race.
Absolutely. Hinds is just about going to fall out of that position, but goodness me, what a finish to this race. Oh, he's not done yet. Rihanna's got to be careful there on the wet line. He's just about going to make it. Oh, can you believe this? The first race of round 6 in the Player1 Sim Gear Super Formula Lights Championship goes to Jackson Rihanna, who gets home in the end by 3.5 seconds in front of Eskandari. Angus Milne will join him on the podium, and somehow Thomas Hinds gets 4th, despite making a call to go onto the wet tyres that we thought was completely averse to any logic. He's got up to 4th place. The last lap, by the way, was a whopping 21 seconds quicker than Jackson Rihanna. It was 31.4 seconds quicker than Sebastian Eskandari. I've never seen a gap between 2 lap times so large inside a top 5.
Yeah, so we thought that was maybe an erroneous call by those who came into the pits, but it turned out to be a masterstroke. From all of that, Aiden Coote gains 10 positions to finish in 6th, and Alex Stevens gains 16 places to round out your top 7. Insane stuff.
Just unbelievable. And in the end, some reached for the wet tyres rather, but way too late. Madeline McGee, who just went over the line there, pitted a couple of laps ago. Mitchell Albert pitted on the penultimate lap. Might have had a meatball in fairness, but even so, it's a very late call to come onto the wet tyres. As you see those final drivers coming across the line there at the end of 15 minutes that absolutely flew by. Felt like about 5. There was so much going on in that race, and a bit of rain a bit earlier than we thought, and certainly heavier rain, much heavier rain than we thought it was going to be at the start of the day. But that's the joys of the iRacing weather system. We've had it in the past in this series where rain that was 99% sure that was going to be arriving never does, so you just never know. Jackson Rihanna, though, takes the full 50 points from race 1, and he'll close the gap by 5 points over Sebastian Eskandari, who will get a bonus point for getting pole. So the gap should drop to 58 points in the championship. Angus Milne joins them on the podium with Thomas Hinds, the first of the wet tyre runners, in 4th. Bronny McConkey rounds out the top 5. He held off Aiden Coote just towards the end there, with Alex Stevens, Kane Ryder, Jens Kasser and Tom Donahue running out the top 10. Mark Hilly finishes 11th, just in front, holding off Danny Davison. Matthew Vince 13th, but of Alexi Watson, who came through the field just in front to get just in front of Anthony Bate and keep his championship lead intact. Dion O'Neill, Tristan McLeod, form rider Nathan Verney, Craig Edwards round out the top 20. The final of the points playing places was taken up by Madeline McGee, Sam Moore, Jackie Chung, Mitchell Albert and Jake Robillard. And then those who don't take points, or indeed a lead lap finish, Marcus Knitska, Scott Bartine and Little 1 lap down. Dan Ackland was 2 down. Brian Borg, Doug Gowans retired very early on. in tonight's race. Well, we're going to need a moment to catch our breath after that one. The first 15 minutes here from Snetterton is going to give way to a 30-minute feature coming up shortly with an open qualifying session to boot as well. So make sure you join us for that. We'll be back in a few moments' time after these messages. Welcome back to Snetterton for the qualifying session for race 2. The half-an-hour feature coming up after a very lively 15-minute sprint. A race unlike what I've ever seen before, I think. So much rain falling in the final few minutes, meaning that those who pitted for wet tyres, we thought prematurely, actually nearly ended up winning the race. Donington was certainly within 10 seconds of doing so. But in this session, it's going to be quite the opposite. Instead of going from sort of dry to wet, it's going to go from quite wet to sort of dry, I suppose. They're all on the wet tyres for this qualifying session at the moment anyway. And speaking to some of the drivers beforehand, hearing just how difficult this circuit was in these wet weather conditions, I can't imagine it's any more difficult than the other rain races we've seen this season. But anyway, that doesn't make it any easier, Reece, for them to deal with in this qualifying session.
Certainly not. You can just see Rihanna moving his way around onto the Bentley straight and see where the patches, the puddles fall here in those subtle dips and bumps in the track surface. You want to try and avoid all of those to get the best out of these tires. And this session as a whole is going to be one where we'll be seeing the drivers stay out as long as they possibly can. If it was a dry qualifying session, you'd expect them to put 1, maybe 2 laps of fuel in the car, go out lap, hot lap, and you're done. But not here. The track is going to keep drying as the session goes on. So you want to be out there right at the end.
So who's going to be able to time that correctly? Because it's not like solo qualifying where you can just decide for yourself where you're going to be. You've got to negotiate with everybody else and negotiate some free track space. Actually, Rihanna hasn't got a representative time on the board yet and might not do at the end of this lap. That was a bit of a lock-up down towards turn 2, but pulls it back for the exit. It's not the worst thing in the world to run wide through there, at least not for your exit, and then avoiding the inside here through the through turn 3. Just water collecting on the inside of the corner there, much like you see in a lot of corners actually. That runs a bit deep into turn 4 as well. Again, it's not the worst thing in the world running a little bit wide in the in the wet weather, but you've got to make sure that your exit is still good, and you've got to make sure your lap time is still good. And this is, I get the feeling this is a really important race for Rihanna. He gained 5 points on Eskandari in the last race. That's all great, but if he goes and loses 10 in this race, there's not much point. So he's got to finish ahead of Eskandari here, I think, for him to really make any ground in the championship tonight.
Yeah, this is probably the most important round of Rihanna's season, and you know, with the conditions being adverse as they are, he's got a few extra challenges to overcome here. Some of the corners through here, the way the track lies and the way the puddles are forming, you've got no choice but to drive through them at some corners. Throughout most of the lap, Rihanna has been keeping to the darker portions of the racetrack. There where less water is, that's where more grip is, you know, the logic follows. But at the apexes of some corners, like Oggie's leading onto the back straight, he had to drive through those puddles, and you aquaplane when you go through the puddles, like those little ones there through turn 1. All you need to do is hit them in the wrong way just slightly and you are around. And here at turn 2, Montreal, Rihanna is a bit quicker to the apex this time. He's managed to stick to the inside, but I wonder if that's actually better than running wide like he did on the last lap.
Yeah, it's going to be a bit of a voyage of discovery this session. It's worth noting as well as Sam Mort finally joins us. Not sure how he did in race 1 actually after starting from the pit lane. Didn't really see him, but it's very difficult in 15 minutes to make your way all the way back through again. And I'm also not sure where Mark Killy has found a second and a half from compared to the rest of the field. I'm not sure whether he's found a different layout or what, but he's found a lot of speed from somewhere, and fair play to him for that. You get some very, very big time gaps in wet weather sessions, especially when the circuit is sort of long like this circuit, but to find that amount of time from Mark Healy is very, very impressive. And I mentioned at the start of the day, he's fourth in the championship, but a real long shot for defending his title, being 167 points behind, and he's got 2 purples again in the first 2 sectors. He's absolutely flying out there at the moment.
He is, and coming up to Murray's, the last corner here at Snetterton. Oh, a little bit of a technical problem for him there, but gets out of the corner all right, and we'll see what the time is for him, whether or not he breaks into the 1:49s on this lap. He breaks into the 1:48s. My goodness, he now has, or for a moment, he had 3 seconds on the rest of the field, but Sebastian Eskandari has brought that gap to within 0.4 of a second.
Yeah, and he must have been close all 3 sectors there, Eskandari, because he didn't have a single purple. Well, it suggests he wasn't any faster than Hilly at any point. Rihanna moves up to 3rd place, and that's exactly what he needed to do there, because otherwise there was going to be a gap between he and Eskandari, and that would mean... well, it wouldn't be good news for Rihanna anyway, in terms of making up places. That's Hilly getting very loose over the curves there, so Eskandari will have 1 more lap here. Hilly will not, I don't think, because of that mistake there, and so it's going to be up to Eskandari now to gain these 0.3 of a second, and that could be enough for pole position.
Certainly could be. Now, Healy, as long as he gets to the start-finish line in time, will be able to go for 1 more lap, I think. This is a single race server and open qualifying, so you will be able to finish your lap after the timer hits 0. So that's some crucial information for the drivers to keep an eye out for. And you can see that there's less and less water now on the line these drivers are taking. They are forcing that water away from the areas of the racetrack they're driving. Eskandari has to aquaplane a little through the right-hander there, and then bomb hole. Easy does it. It's always difficult when you have another car in front of you who isn't quite on the same page as you as to what line to take. Is this going to be the response that he needs to grab another pole position? More traffic in the final corner.
Is that going to halt him from getting this pole position here as he slowed through the final turn? It might be too late to overturn this, but Eskandari is going to come to the line, and he might well have his last lap. No, he won't. He'll get through. He does go quicker, but it's not quite quick enough. And it's still 0.3 of a second between Eskandari and pole position. Hilly comes over the line in time. He will get another chance as well. Ryan Borg moves up to 3rd place. Jackson Rihanna will be 4th, and that will be the end of his session, by the way. So the smallest gap that there's going to be between Eskandari and Rihanna is going to be 2 places with Borg in between them. There could even be more as Scott Bartime moves up towards the top, and there may be some more getting in front of Rihanna, but not in front of Eskandari. There's another. Davison goes through.
Yeah, good lap from Danny Davison. He'll be starting nice and high up the field, but we're still waiting on other times here. Casa, meanwhile, putting himself into P15. That's way off the track there for Mark Healy. I don't know if that would still count as a valid lap, but we'll wait and see. It looks like he's committing for the time being. Mitchell Albert and Vaughan Ryder go to 10th and 11th. There's, just like I said before, the longer you stay out, as long as you're there at the very end of the session, you will find some gains. But look at the amount of meatball flags we're seeing on the timing there.
Yeah, it's sort of pushing into the wall, or pushing so hard that he crash. Or indeed, not at all, and Hilly's off. So that's going to be it for Hilly. And Eskandari's got a purple middle sector here. Could this be a late turnaround here as the championship leader takes pole in race 2? He's taken a nice line through Coram and in towards the final turn, avoiding as many puddles as he can. Now the run up towards the line. Sebastian Eskandari utilising the driest conditions of anybody, maybe to take pole position for race 2. Oh, he can't do it. He joins Hilly in the 48s at least, but he doesn't go any quicker, or at least not quick enough. And Mark Hilly survives. Eskandari gets close, but I don't think anybody was a match for Hilly in these conditions in this qualifying session.
No, the only car left to complete a time here is Tristan McLaren, and looks like he'll be making his way into pit lane. He's decided he's not going to commit to the end of that one. Man, what a session. What big improvements found by those behind Healy. But crucially, Healy was able to nail the conditions at exactly the right time and take pole position by what turned out to be just enough of a margin.
Yeah, it's a close qualifying session in the end. At least it was between the top two. But Mark Killy takes pole position here tonight for race 2. He's only done that once so far this season. That came before the Donington Park race, which unfortunately he went on to finish outside of the point scoring top 35 positions, by the way. So he'll be hoping that he doesn't repeat that, although of course he can't finish outside the top 35 tonight. He will be on the front row with Sebastian Eskandari, with Team Max Boost taking 2 of the top 3. Danny Davison in 3rd, and Scott Bartine in 4th. Frank Borg with a good qualifying gets to 5th, with Jackson Riada finishing in 6th place. Work to do for him. Alex Stevens and Craig Edwards are on row 4, ahead of Sam Mort and Kane Ryder rounding out the top 10. Mitchell Albert and Vaughan Ryder on row 6, ahead of Tom Donahue and Brody McConkey on row 7. Madeline McGee rounds out the top 15, with finally the silver class pole goers Tristan McLaren all the way down in 16th. Angus Milne and James Kasser on row 9, ahead of Marcus Knitska and Alexei Watson, the first all-silver row, just inside the top 20. Aidan Coote and Anthony Bate are on row 11, ahead of Dylan Little and Matthew Vince. Jackie Chung and Thomas Hinds qualifies pretty badly, considering he was good in the wet at the end of the last race. 26th for him. Nathan Verney and Jake Robillard in row 14, had Dean O'Neill and Dan Ackland at the back of the field. We are not seeing, I think, Doug Gowans, who's not transferred over to this session, I think. Not sure, but anyway, we seem to be missing someone from the previous server. Well, I have a feeling this could be quite a topsy-turvy race. It could be quite important how wet it is off the start here. And to give you an idea, everybody's on wets apart from Scott Bartine, so either he's made a genius call or a big mistake.
Yeah, I think it's a big mistake, honestly, Ewan, because I've just looked at the weather radar, and we're at the very end of a bank of rain that has come over the circuit. There's going to be a tiny little patch that comes over in the next minute or so as well, and I've just seen it start falling there. So Scott Bartine is probably looking at that and thinking, oh dear, I'm in for a rough first lap.
Oh dear, indeed. So I've just seen the fact that it is still raining. I was told at the start of the race it wouldn't be raining anymore. You can go into you can cancel your gridding. Well, it's too late now, obviously, but you can cancel your gridding and change again. But Bartine hasn't done that. And on a serious note, it might actually cause some trouble here. He's directly in front of Rihanna, so watch out on the run towards turn number 1. Eskandari doesn't really go anywhere. Rihanna just skipped past nicely, so he's going to get away with this. It's 4 wide in the background, by the way, as they all tear down in towards turn number 1 for the first time. Eskandari and Davison both take the places from Mark Hilly. They both get into 1 and 2 ahead of Hilly. Then it is Jackson Rihanna, and off the circuit, no surprise, Scott Bartine. There's a number of drivers off the circuit. Look at the changing going on back there. Here comes Hilly, side by side with Danny Davison, coming in towards turn 3. He's lost his pole. He's lost second place. Mark Hilly behind Danny Davison.
Oh, that's such a shame. Also, for Angus Milne, who got a podium in the previous race, unfortunately, Aidan Coote went into a slide alongside him, and the car you saw tumbling through the bottom left-hand corner of the frame a few moments ago was Angus Milne. So he's one of a few drivers who's very heavily damaged and just limping back to the pit lane at the moment.
Well, that is a real shame. We'll have some replays of the of the lap 1 carnage in a moment. In fact, here they are. Angus Milne did so well just by surviving, really, in race 1. But unfortunately, if somebody, oh dear, and he actually gets up onto his roof. I wonder whether we might see a safety car for this. Well, he's back on his wheels again now. To be fair, it looks like everybody's actually got away from the scene of the accident. Oh dear, Kane Ryder in the background has gone for a spin there for Max Boost. You can see him perpendicular to the circuit, and he is dropping down very, very quickly. Jackson Rihanna, meantime, gets up into 3rd place, and this rain hasn't lasted very long. That's not going to mean that Bartine would have been vindicated had he had a better lap 1, but even because look how wet it is still. But that does show that it probably will be time for drives before the end.
Yeah, indeed. Here's another look at what happened to Angus Milne. Coote slides on the curb and white line, and he even goes beyond the fence a little bit. But yeah, crucially, Milne was still able to roll, and it looks like he's on the verge of being able to get back into pit lane, albeit very, very slowly. We have Dylan Little and Marcus Knitska, who have both towed back to pit lane at this point, and I think both of them towed without permission from race control, so they're going to get slammed with a couple of extra penalties from that. No safety car as a result from all of that carnage we saw on lap 1. So Jackson Rihanna has, well, he's back from our leaders by about 3 seconds. It's Healy versus Eskandari up at the front, and Healy was able to take advantage of those wet conditions in qualifying, but how does he go on the race setup is the question. There'll be more fuel in the car, so it will be a little bit more stable through some of those low grip conditions, but they will have to come into the pits once in this race just to get enough fuel to get to the end. They will be using less fuel though, lapping as slow as they are in these wet conditions, so that's worth thinking about.
Yeah, it is, and Hilly's got a great run here out of the final corner before the back straight and in towards the chicane at the end of it. He's going to be in the lead. I mean, I'm not sure what he's done to perfect these conditions so much better than everybody else, but Hilly is no match for anybody else here. He is racing into the lead, and he will be difficult to beat from here, unless, of course, it dries up and brings the others back into play again. Eskandari second. Rihanna is nearly 4 seconds behind. Even if things were to stay as they are right now, Eskandari would extend his championship lead over Rihanna by just a few points if you take both races into account, despite the fact that Rihanna did gain some in race number 1 with that victory. Over the line they come at the end of lap number 2 here. And Hilly now leads, but this track is going to begin to dry up and bring others into play. This is lap 1, by the way, where I think when Vorm Ryder went for a spin right in front of the field, coming onto the back straight. Oh,
this was another incident. This was only earlier this lap. So Ryder spun again, and McGee went into him. Safety car's out.
I'm not surprised. I'm surprised it hasn't been out already, to be honest. So. Yeah, safety car out for the first time tonight, and we do have some pit stops further back, by the way, from those who think, well, this is as good a time as any to come in. Tom Donahue was leading them on. However, the only, normally I would say, you know, absolutely that is a strategy to be on, but I would say this time it might be possible to no stop it because of the fuel situation you were talking about earlier on, and the safety car is going to make the no stop more possible as well. Maybe some of the guys who are staying out right now are going to have to bank on the fact they won't need to stop in this race.
Yeah, it is a bit of a gamble, though. They only have qualifying to go off as the field's having to make their way around Vaughan Ryder, who's on his roll hoop in the middle of the Bentley straight right now. He's finally been given permission to tow by race control there, so the hazard has been removed, but we will be spending another couple of laps behind the safety car. Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of people in the background doing some calculations here. That's what spun Ryder around, just that puddle off the exit curb, and then McGee emerges out of the spray, and that's some friendly fire at Team Max Boost there.
So the safety car is going to pick up Hilly unless he stops, and he does. So, and indeed everybody might do here. I did wonder whether somebody might wait, because you could take on some dry tyres as well if you wait that really long enough, but maybe most are expecting it to remain wet tyres to the finish. Nobody stupid enough to put the dries on at this stage in the race.
No.
Sorry, Scott Bartine. Into the box they go, and just Hilly get out in front of Eskandari. Going to be a bit of a race off pit lane here, and Eskandari gets out first easily. Way in front. I'm not sure why it's taken Hilly 9 seconds, but that's far longer than anybody else.
Yeah, that's a really long time spent in the lane. I'm going to review Hilly's pit stop there to see if he ended up overshooting, or if it was just a case of maybe he put more fuel in the car than he was supposed to. Eskandari was obviously well prepped and only putting the smallest of a splash in his car. No tire changes for anyone. But yeah, Hilly, I think maybe had a gallon or two extra of fuel that he had to put in the car, and he didn't really need to. So that's ultimately cost him the lead, but fortunately, under safety car conditions, the field is bunched up, so he'll have more than enough chances here to get the lead back from Eskandari. And it's worth pointing out that the point that I made earlier about more fuel in the car making it a bit more stable, it's not going to entirely be about aerodynamic grip in these conditions. Mechanical grip is more important, and the more weight your car has, the more mechanical grip you'll have. Is that going to work out for Mark Healy? It remains to be seen, but we'll just have to wait and see, as Dan Ackland is the next car to come a cropper of the puddles, this time at turn 3.
So the Eskandari leads the field around, being paced by the safety car. I think Jimmy Peacock's driving it again tonight, isn't he? So
yes.
I mean, these are difficult conditions. We've seen Jimmy crash in the dry on multiple occasions, so watch out when he gets released in a moment. I think they're staying to the left to let some people past, maybe. There may be some people trapped to lap down, although I can't see any on the timing at the moment. I suppose Little and Kanitska are stopped to lap down. Well, people are weaving in the back, so maybe they're not being let past at the moment. Everybody just keeping the tyres up to temperature in these slightly slower conditions. So there'll be less than 20 minutes to go when we go back green. And by the way, just on the start of this race, I'm surprised that we didn't see a safety car after lap 1, to be honest with you, because that's one of the bigger first lap crashes I can remember this season.
Yeah, indeed. I suppose from race control's perspective, they would wait to see a car requesting a tow before that really triggers a safety car, and none of the cars involved in that lap 1 incident requested a tow before going back to pit lane. So potentially it's just following protocol. Reminder of the schedule as we make our way to potentially the final lap of this safety car period. Only 2 rounds to go. Sebring and the Bend will round off the season, and I would expect both of those races to be in dry conditions. I mean, it is technically winter in the northern hemisphere at the moment, or getting close to it, but the Bend of the final round is going to be hot and dry.
Well, it feels cold anyway. I can certainly 9 degrees. It's not that bad this morning, but there you go. It's certainly getting a bit like that. Anyway, the lap cars have indeed been let past. So Little and Kanitska. So remarkably, Dylan Little, after towing without permission, repairing his car for minutes, and indeed spending a bit of time a lap down, he's actually going to get back on the lead lap again and might actually get a decent finish, although he will be 20 seconds further back than where he actually finishes on the road because of that penalty that he just referenced a moment ago. So good to see that all 30 drivers are still in the race. Even Vaughan Ryder is out there at the moment in 30th position. Can't imagine it'll be too long until we go back green flag racing again here, and just wonder whether this has taken the sort of the big part of the real wet weather conditions that Mark Healy was thriving in earlier on out of the race, and maybe that brings others into play. With Eskandari leading, Rihanna's gap that he had to the lead has been wiped away. There are some other contenders now than it just being a Mark Healy runaway.
Yes, so yeah, I'm honestly not sure how to call this, because not only do we still have a very wet track, it really hasn't been long enough in the race to really get a dry line going. I do see one forming in places, but overall the track is too wet to even think about a dry line or dry tires, and it's unlikely to change anytime soon. Worth pointing out also that Vaughan Ryder has just gotten a wave around, so now everybody's back on the lead lap. It's effectively a hard reset for a lot of these drivers, but there's plenty well out of position. Ryan Borg is down 12 places, and Scott Bartine, after starting on those dries, is down 23 places, running in 27th spot. Gotta wonder what kind of pace he'll have underneath him now that he's on the right tire. Yeah,
absolutely. Going to be interesting. All 30 of the drivers who are all still in this race are on wet tyres, unsurprisingly. And with just over half of the race remaining, Eskandari will go back green again in a moment, and we'll see how long he leaves it. See if he goes around, somewhere around this final section to pull a bit of a gap, or whether he leaves it right to the home straight itself. He's created a big gap though to the pace car, which has pulled away from the field, and will be pretty much ready to go round to the right-hander, the final right-hander of this circuit at Coram. Will Eskandari go around here? Will he go out of the final corner, further down the front straight? These are all questions that Hilly will be asking at the moment as well. Eskandari continues to wait. Now that could cause a bit of a stack up in the background if people are not expecting it, and Eskandari doesn't wait too long, so we're out of the final corner. They can see it happening a little bit in the background, and they're already side by side. Back there, some people getting jumped on a little bit, but out front, Eskandari leads quite nicely in front of Hilly, Rihanna and Davison, who all reacted quite well. Sam Morton, Stevens didn't react quite so well, and the gap is more than a second. Anthony Bate is battling with him. He's the silver class leader, by the way, and Alexi Watson is close by, but there goes Craig Edwards down the inside. He makes up the place in towards turn 2, and that gives Bate a bit of insurance there in the silver lead.
Yeah, so the line through turn 3, they're going to be running all the way over to the right-hand side here. That's where the grip is. Course like Snetterton that tends to follow the lie of the land and have some banking in the corners means the inside is not where you want to be, but Edwards is making it work. He's climbed his way back up to his starting position of 8th, and all the crushing is happening right behind him. It's a super long line of cars that goes all the way back to Matthew Vince in 19th place. Our leaders have just sprinted away. They've got 2-3 seconds ahead of Jackson Rihanna at the moment. But for now, we need to get back into a rhythm here and see where they're finding the grip.
In towards the final chicane. That was Hilly again looking, but Eskandari again defending and holding on well. Unfortunately for Rihanna, it doesn't look like he's quite got the speed, and he's effectively relying on Mark Hilly here, his championship rival, who took a title off him effectively in season 3. Does season? Oh, and he's gone! And he's gone for a big spin here. He was just a little bit wide. He's recovered it though. Is he going to cut the course to try and get back on and not lose too much time? He's going to have to. The grass is vast over there, and he's going to get back on the circuit. He might well have a slowdown penalty because of that, but Mark Hilly might have just seen his chances at a race win tonight go up there with that spin through Coram.
And Danny Davison is going to get him on the inside of turn 1. No, he's not. Mark Healy getting his confidence right back there and defending the position. So still in 4th place. It's not over yet. But with Jackson Rihanna not able to hold on to the pace that he and Eskandari can, Healy might have some trouble at least getting into the runner-up spot.
Goodness me. Well, that is giving Eskandari a gap that he might well be able to hold now until the very end. Tom Donahue, unfortunately, has gone off through turn 3. You can see him there on the very outside. He's now well outside the top 10, outside the top 15, in fact, in this second race of the evening. Hilly now back on the circuit, has got himself in behind Jackson Rihanna as well. 2 seconds the gap between Eskandari now and Rihanna, who is currently in 2nd place, but that gap looks close to insurmountable already. Alexi Watson has been passed by James Casser now as well. He's now outside the top 10. Anthony Bate looking more and more comfortable in the silver class, and here comes Mark Hilly. You'd imagine he would get through on Rihanna pretty quickly, and he has done. Jackson Rihanna almost letting him through there, as if to say, well, you've got a better chance of beating Eskandari than I have, so you might as well go on past and try and do so. Hilly's got 2 seconds to catch here and nearly 14 minutes to do it.
So we'll see what Healy's pace is like in clear air from now. This is what happened to Tom Donahue, our league owner here at Formula Drivers League, through turn 3. A little bit offline on the way in. Looked like the car was not cooperating with him. So that's going to be another couple of positions lost for Donahue. Down in 19th now. Biggest gainers in the field include Anthony Bate and Nathan Verney. They are both up double digits on position at the moment. Bate is having a very good time right now, up into 8th place, and he's got some insurance in the form of McConkey and Borg in between himself and Alexi Watson as well. Oh, scratch that. Alexi Watson's just gotten past Ryan Borg there, and it looks like a bit of close racing racing going on here as James Casser's going to get involved as well up the inside, and the man who qualified on the front row for race 1 is back up into 11th.
Yeah, be good to see Casser get a good race result this time round in race 2, and he's now in the top 10. Donahue's off through the same corner again. He's clearly struggling with turn 3 because Tom Donahue has gone off from the same corner twice now, as just in front of the group he's just left. It's tearing down towards 4. All as one here. Kane Riders at the front of this group in 12th place, side by side between Coote and Borg, and Aidan Coote will get up into 14th position. Sam Mort now is off for and spins actually coming onto the back straight. Edwards and Stevens both got past. The gap's so big behind there that Sam Mort doesn't lose too many more places. McConkey and Bate go straight through, but not too many positions lost in the end. This is not good news for Sam Mort certainly, but he's not outside the top 10. Down in towards the chicane again for these guys, and they're pretty much single file on the way, and this is what happened to Sam Mort. It's completely from turning there. Maybe a little bit wide, and that didn't help, and good avoidance from those behind as well, but that's how he dropped pretty much back to where he qualified.
Yeah, that he did. It's not been a good round for Sam Moore. Still a mystery as to why he started from the pits in race 1. I think he would have been at least competitive in the top 10 here. Regardless, we will have yet more to think about in terms of Ryder, McLaren, Coote, Albert, the guys battling up the front of silver and sort of just outside the top 10 in gold. There's plenty more to come here in the next 11 and a quarter minutes. Move made, and Aidan Coote will go a bit deep there at turn 2. Something happening to Ryan Borg, meanwhile, coming into Coram, the second last corner. This is where Healy spun, in exactly the same spot, in almost exactly the same manner. Seems like the driver's having trouble with weight transfer through there. Yeah,
well, it's always a problem around here. It's got some unusual corners, Snetterton. It's just as well because it is a featureless landscape, so you've got to make something out of it, I suppose, and make some very unusual corners instead, which is what the circuit is really made up of. Tom Donahue is, well, he was in the top 20 briefly. Vince gets back past him, although not for too long. He'll be on the outside around the right-hander here, and, well, he's not going to get past, in fact, coming onto the back straight. So Donahue has to tuck back into line again here and get the exit off of here in towards the end of the chicane, the end of the straight rather, and into the chicane, and so up into 20 if he should go now, unless Vince is going to hold him out there on the outside, and he will do. So making this very difficult for Tom Donahue, who's finding these overtakes hard to make right now. Alexi Watson, the championship leader in silver, is off through Bombhole. He goes very, very wide, and he's now outside the top 20. That could be big news for the Silver Class Championship.
Certainly could be. A problem for Watson there was he ran right through the puddle that collects down at the bottom of this banked corner, right through the wet, and the rear end just said, no thank you, I'm not interested in that at all. And well, Alexei has now fallen outside the overall top 20. It's a real shame for him. That's going to put his championship in jeopardy potentially, but for now, keep our eyes peeled on this battle for 11th and 12th. Aidan Coote got Kane Ryder up ahead of him. Kane now only 2 positions down from where he started, both of them keeping it nice and stable through turn 3. But it looks like Ryder is on the defensive here. Coote's going to have the racing line into turn 5. Can he hold on around the exit? He certainly can. That's the beauty of wet weather racing. You go wide side by side through a corner and you can certainly hold on to the position, but I think discretion the better part of valor there for Aidan Coote, and he will stay behind a little further. Looks like Tristan McLaren might have had an issue as well. I see him dropping outside the top 20 now.
Yeah, he's, well, let's see what happened to him. Can't even tell where this is. through the middle of the circuit, just goes through a spin, doesn't even touch any of the curbs, just goes for a spin. Has to chuck it back round again through turn 5, that looked like. Yeah. And then Dylan Liddell out of the final corner before the back straight. He does get on the curb on the outside, and that is a sure easy way to find yourself spinning around. So spray still being kicked up here. It's still pretty wet as Rihanna defends from Davison. Just 8 minutes to go. Doesn't look like we're going to be getting anywhere near a dry circuit before the end here, despite the fact it's not rained for about 20 minutes. Davison on the outside will switch to the inside here and try and get past Jackson Rihanna, who will defend again into turn 3 and successfully does so. You get the feeling he's got to keep third place here because as it stands, he's still losing 19 points to Eskandari as it is.
Yeah, this is an important battle for Jackson Rihanna. And he's just keeping it on the dry line there through the corners. You saw Davison try to do a cutback there, but the puddle's just in the wrong place. The car had no traction through that standing water. And you've got to be so careful on the curbs as well. Any painted surface becomes deathly slippery in wet conditions. And half of the spins we've seen have usually been from hitting puddles in the middle of the corner, but a lot of them have been at corners like this one, entry onto the Bentley Straight, where there's a lot of standing water around the curbs and the white lines on the exits. Here's the slipstream then for Davison. This is a location here at Brundle where Mark Healy has been able to make some good moves. And it looks like Rihanna is going to take the wide line that becomes the inside for the right-hander. Now through bomb hole, which we've seen many drivers spin out from running a little bit too narrow through the corner. Both of our drivers here managed to nail it. So looks like this is going to be a long-term thing for Danny Davison. Still 6.5 minutes left to work this out.
Yeah, exactly. It's the thing with the feature race, isn't it? You've got a little bit more time to work it out than you have in the sprint, which went by very, very quickly indeed. Those 15 minutes of madness at the opening of tonight's 2 races. Unfortunately, this is the last of our sprint rounds this season, by the way. So we see Marcus Knitska have a very similar spin to what Tristan McLaren did only a couple of laps ago. But yeah, next week is a 45-minute feature race, as we've seen already on a couple of occasions this season, and then a 60-minute endurance race to end the season at the Bend Motorsports Park. We've already seen one of those to open the season in Mexico. We'll end the season at the Bend with a 1-hour race on the 25th of November. We'll see whether the championship's still in play by then. Eskandari is threatening to have it sewn up by the end of this. Not this race, but next week's race, certainly. The gap at the moment, I think, would be about 77 points if the race was to end right now, with Eskandari first and Rihanna in third place. Craig Edwards will have fallen quite a long way further back tonight after starting the day 101 points back, but finished quite a way down in race 1. And he's only 5th here. I say only, but when Eskandari is winning, that's not particularly useful. Here's Aidan Coote through the final couple of corners, going pretty fast, and he can't get it slowed in time, locks it up and spins, just about gets out of the way before the onrushing pack. So many spins we've seen so far. Again, it has been about survival, much like the end of race 1 was.
Yeah, and it seems that no one is safe from hitting a puddle in the wrong place. Earlier this lap, I saw Danny Davison coming onto the back straight. Oh dear, Rihanna's spun. You're about to see him in frame. Oh, no, there he is. That is a spin at the second last, well, on the way into the final corner, really. But it was just as soon as Rihanna got on the brakes, the rears locked and around he went. He was solidly in second after Davison lost some time earlier this lap, but now Rihanna, I think, has no chance of finishing on the podium if everything stays as it is.
Yeah, absolutely no chance as it is, although having said that, Edwards and Davison are battling themselves, taking away all the bonuses that might well come in for any of them. He would lose 40 points in this scenario, and that would put the lead of Eskandari up to 98 heading into the final or penultimate race of the season next week. Effectively meaning if Eskandari outscores Rihanna next week, he'll be champion before the final round, which has never happened before in this series. We've had a championship finale every single time, and on 2 of those occasions the championship leader has lost their lead on the very final day. You can't take your drop round on the final day, of course, but that might not even matter to Sebastian Eskandari as Sam Mort puts the pressure onto Brodie McConkey for 7th position. just to clear up from last race, by the way, the reason why Sam Moore started from the pit lane is because of a penalty from last week, so it wasn't a choice. He had to. He's made up just one place in this race so far and shown decent speed, but unfortunately he's not really shown the speed that he came into Montreal with, really, where he came into the series, made his debut. Pole likes to flag victory in his first ever race and hasn't really been able to repeat that since.
No, probably the rookie curse in a way, but I think the adverse conditions here at Snetterton have played into it as well. Everyone has struggled this round in some way. No one has been safe from a spin or a slide. Speaking of, there was another Max Boost car that had gone for a spin. I believe that's Madeline McGee, who's now lost her front nose cone. Catches the puddle over the curb and the white line, slippery dip, and into the arm she goes, and that has destroyed the car. She managed to make it off the circuit, I believe, so I don't think there's any danger of another safety car here, but regardless, now we'll see the fight continue on here between Tristan McLaren and Jackie Chung, both of these drivers having their fair share of spins, and now it's on for second place in silver, as that's a poor exit from McLaren, and Chung will move on through.
Yeah, straight through into second place and 16th overall as well. So not many points available actually back here for these two in the silver class because, well, an unusual small amount of points actually because the silver drivers are so far down at the moment. But nevertheless, the battle for second is in silver. It is the same no matter where they are overall. Inside line for McLaren again. He tries to win that place back, although with the outside line, Chung's going to get a much better run on the exit, and he'll still have the inside line into turn 3. But that gives Tristan McLaren the outside at turn 3 itself, so he'll have the better run through there, and he will get into second place as well. This is the penultimate lap for these guys. The final lap is about to be taken by the leaders. Eskandari is going to take it with a comfortable gap behind as well, because Hilly's just gone off slightly through the final corner. It's nearly 3 seconds. Eskandari's just going to focus on bringing this one home now, and of course pushing on to make sure that he gets the fastest lap point as well, because at the moment he does have it, but with these drying conditions, you never know who might take it off him.
Yeah, might very well be someone outside the top 10 making a recovery who gets that. You know, the later on in the session it is, the more chances cars have had to wick that moisture away. You can see it through turn 3. There is it, and you see it there too. There is a dry line forming right at the very end of the race. So Eskandari will be looking to keep that car on rails like he's driving a train and staying on that dry line. Any extra points he can get to consolidate his championship lead coming into the last 2 rounds will mean a lot. Meanwhile, there's more going on here for Thomas Hinz. Angus Milne just getting past him, and Scott Bartine on the recovery has made his way all the way up to 13th after being pretty much at the back after starting on the dries. It's been a very eventful race for him.
As it has been for so many. Been a very eventful evening indeed for everybody as well. Here comes Bartine on the straight towards 3 and 4. He's not going to get down the inside of Hinz there. And Hinz, unfortunately, for the second week in a row, just having a couple of races that is going to lose him quite a lot of points here in the standings. Finished 7th last week. The week before that, only scored 45 points from the last sprint round to when the maximum is 150, and that really isn't enough. Out of the final corner for Sebastian Eskandari, who is going to win again. His 5th win of the season, this time in race 2 at Snetterton in the Player1 Sim Gear Super Formula Lights Championship. He takes another victory, and he does not get the fastest lap point. Mark Hilly will get that instead, but even so, he will be leading the championship by nearly 100 points. Meantime, Edwards gets close to Davison. He can't quite get the position on the very last lap, and here comes Jackson Riada. He finishes in 6th position. It's confirmed then Eskandari nearly 100 points in front of Rihanna at the end of tonight, meaning if he outscores him next week in the one race at Sebring, he will become champion with a round still to go.
That's huge, and it just speaks to the consistent form that Eskandari has had up the front of this field. He hasn't been immune from mistakes. No one has in this field, but Eskandari, through his sheer pace, has been able to almost drive around the problems that he has had. For the moment, it looks like Jackie Chung is going to be coming through here to take the win in silver. A fantastic job from him. Looks like he and McLaren, when they traded spots, they had the former silver leader falling behind them, so that's going to be some good points there for Jackie Chung. And we're hearing from George behind the scenes that Bate may have pitted on the last lap, and looking at the timing screen, it looks like he did. So that's a problem there for Anthony Bate. I think maybe he didn't have enough fuel in the car to get to the end.
That is unusual, but I guess just went a lap longer maybe than he was expecting, and so Bate drops to third in silver. Chung will take the class ahead of McLaren. Alexi Watson still finishes 22nd though, in fairness, so it might not be all bad, because he scored so few points from this race. But again, they will all have so few points that it's going to make very little difference to the championship, I think. It's been a low-scoring silver class season. Out front, though, Eskandari, it's been a very high-scoring season, in fact. He wins race 2 in front of Mark Healy, and with Danny Davison running out the top 3. He just about held off Craig Edwards and Alex Stevens there. Jackson Rihanna finishes 6th and loses big points in the championship as well, with Sam Malt 7th. Bronny McConkey, Kane Ryder and James Castle round out the top 10, with Angus Milne, Scott Bartine, Thomas Inns, Aidan Coote, all within a minute of the win. And then finally to the silver class victory. Jackie Chung, Tristan McLaren and Anthony Bate all on the podium, with Marcus Konitska 18th. Tom Donahue and Dan Ackland round out the top 20. 21st was Jake Robillard, with Alexi Watson, Nathan Verney, Matthew Vince and Vaughan Ryder running off those on the lead lap. Dylan Little got to the finish with Dion O'Neill as well, 1 lap down. Amanda McGee crashed out late. Michelle Albert finished down 29th, and Ryan Borg 30th at the end of that second race. Let's have a chat then to Sebastian Eskandari, first of all, who has won race 2 tonight. And Seb, welcome in. Good to have you with us again. Winner in race 2 at least. We'll start with that. Just a second and a half ahead of Mark Healy. Talk us through that race after the safety car itself, and the pressure that Mark was putting on you towards the finish there.
Yeah, it was quite tricky conditions towards the end, especially with the track drying out. But after the safety car, it was just about trying to keep a good gap, and it was sort of balancing from like 1.5 to 1 second. 1 second, so just trying to keep that. And then at the end, I started to drop off a little bit in pace, but I think that was just tyre wear. So, but I mean, everyone else was dropping off. So overall, I think it was a decent race.
And for race number 1, obviously on the wrong side of that, as it were, as far as a race winning thing went. But how were those conditions towards the end? I've got to say, we weren't expecting it to get quite so wet in the final laps of race 1.
Yeah, no, the forecast didn't say anything like it was going to get that wet. And then it had that one little shower at the start, which we all thought to go on wets initially. But then it all just dried up again. And then all of a sudden, with 2 laps to go, it just starts bucketing with rain again. So that sort of screwed me over. I was just trying to drive really cautiously, but then saw Jackson behind me and stomped on the throttle like I usually would, and then I just spun around.
It was very, very difficult, very surprising as well. But the forecast can sometimes be wrong, as we know. Well, thanks for chatting to us as always, Seven. Congratulations on a couple of good results again tonight.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Thanks very much. That's Sebastian Eskandari, who, as I say, gets a couple of good results and now leads the championship by nearly 100 points. Let's have a chat to Mark Healy, who got very close indeed to a feature race victory tonight. And Mark, welcome in. Good to have you with us. 1.5 seconds the gap between yourself and Seb in the end. But what would you say is the key moment in creating that gap between the two of you in race 2?
Deciding to stopped twice instead of once. I don't know if you guys caught it, but I came into pit lane, didn't know how much fuel to put in, so I I think it was adding 3 liters, but I wanted to add 8, so then instead of adding an extra 5, it added the 3, and then reset me, and then refueled me again, and that cost me the lead, like at the safety car restart. And then the spin, not spinning, might have helped on the restart, but oh well.
Yeah, we did wonder what. In fact, I was sort of wondering how you managed to get 9 seconds of fuel in the car, but that explains a lot more from the pit stop. How did you deal with the conditions tonight? The two races were so similar in some ways, but so different in others, in a sense of how wet it got towards the end of race 1 and how wet it was at the start of race 2 and then dried off, obviously. How did you cope with the conditions? What was the key, anyway, to coping with these conditions tonight?
If you're on slicks, just do not leave that dry line under any circumstances was the motto of the sprint. And then in the wet, it was do not under any circumstances go near that dry line. So yeah, two very different races, but they were both fun. So
yeah, well, absolutely. Congrats on a good couple of results throughout them as well, and thanks for chatting to us at the end of the night.
Oh, thank you, man.
Thanks very much. That's Mark Healy. He finishes second place in race 2, just in front of Danny Davison, who just about gets home with third place. Danny, welcome in. Good to have you with us. Craig Edwards in the end finishing just less than a couple of hundredths behind you in the end on that run to the line. Just talk us through those last couple of laps there as you were trying to hold him off, and of course Alex Stevens as well, who was there and thereabouts. Tell us about those last couple of laps.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't that much fun, to be honest, with Craig, running me down in the last laps in the wet, and I was struggling sort of with the braking, so I was sweating quite a lot, and a bit of a miracle. I thought he was going to overtake me, so I'm very happy with third after what happened. Very satisfied.
And it's the third round in a row where in at least one of the races he's been on the podium as well. How pleased are you that you're finding this kind of form towards the end of the season?
Yeah, pretty happy. I had some messy races recently as well, so I was glad not to bin it tonight. I was hoping to win as usual, but after what happened, I'll take third. I'm pretty happy overall.
Well, congrats on that podium, Danny, and thanks for coming to chat to us at the end of the day as well.
Yeah, thanks guys. See you next week. Cheers.
Thanks very much. That's Danny Davison, who finishes in third place in race 2, and then all the way down in 15th place, our silver class winner, Jackie Chung, can now join us as well. Jackie, welcome in. Good to have you with us. In the end, silver class victory, although surprising because of late pit stops and all that kind of thing. How surprised were you that you came out with the lead there very late on?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that was unexpected. It was a very close battle between me and Tristan right at the end. I think I only got him by half a second there. It was good battling, and I just had a look as I crossed the line. It turned out to be first, so I think I just managed to avoid a bit of chaos, but there was a lot of drama on my end as well at the start.
Yeah, talk us through that opening lap, because you started, as I know just now, you gained 10 places to the finish there. Therefore, you started down in 25th, which is the third last row. So you must have seen a lot of carnage on lap number 1 there. How did you pick your way through all of that?
That's right. Yeah, the qualifying was tricky because it was super wet. I only managed to put in the lap at the end. And basically, navigating lap 1 was just tiptoeing, people spinning off. I had to dodge some people. I spun off myself as well, so yeah, I'm quite surprised. I think it was the safety car that I managed to take advantage of.
Well, congratulations on taking advantage of it, and I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, getting your first silver class win of the season. And
that's right.
Yeah, well, congratulations on that, and thanks for chatting to us at the end of the night as well.
Thanks so much.
Thanks very much. That's Jackie Chung, first class victory in the silver class this season under slightly surprising circumstances. Only 29 points before tonight for Chung, by the way, so we'll maybe move up the field a little bit further in the silver class championship, which is still very low scoring and still very close, as you can see down, or as we will see in a sec. This is the overall championship, though. This has the gap at 98. I wonder whether I don't think it takes into account bonuses, though maybe it does. That is going to be somewhere around 100, though. So, as I said before, Rihanna has got to outscore Eskandari at the next round. Nobody else can overhaul that as a championship margin. The gap is 167 to Craig Edwards, who could only gain a maximum, as anybody can on Eskandari, only gain a maximum of 36 next week. So that would not bring it below the 100 points required to be able to take it off Eskandari before the finish. So nobody else other than Rihanna can take this off of Sebastian Eskandari now. Also true that Eskandari is already confirmed as needing quite a lowly score on the last race, even if he loses the maximum 36 points next week to Rihanna. He doesn't need a massive score at the final round to win the championship. Even something like 12 from now would be good enough. And if he finishes well enough next week, then he can make his situation even more comfortable. I think, Reece, he'll be feeling a lot better after tonight, getting a rain race out of the way. With still 2 rounds to go, yes, but 100 points now is a comfortable margin to sit on.
Yeah, indeed. I don't expect him to back off, though. Eskandari is one of those drivers who's going to push at every single opportunity, so I'd expect him to be right up there in the last couple of rounds. Also worth noting that Mark Healy and Danny Davison have both overtaken Thomas Hinz in the championship top 5, with the results from Hinz's night not reflecting his qualifying pace. So that's worth keeping an eye out for as well, the battle between Healy and Davison for championship P4. But that's going to bring proceedings to an end for Snetterton, and we're going to go from one former Second World War airbase to another, Sebring, next week. The bumps reign supreme there, and I think it's going to be just as hazardous as Snetterton, but for entirely different reasons.
Yeah, one more slightly iconic circuit than the other, I would say, even though I am British. The Sebring circuit does have a bit more of a place in world motorsport, but that's where we'll be next week. Just to clear up, that's the second half of the standings. Alexei Watson's leading by 15 points over Tristan McLaren. It's going to be a really close silver championship fight. We haven't actually really had either in the challenge class like what we had in the opening seasons, or in the silver class since that became a thing. We haven't really had championship fights in the secondary class, but we're going to get a great one this season. Watson only 15 points in front of McLaren, only 19 in front of Anthony Bate now, who will be feeling disappointed he didn't close that further. He'll be 23 in front of Konitska, and the rest of them going on down. Migo Costa-Texeira, for example, wasn't here tonight, neither was David Gallo. So they'll all be a lot closer as well when you add their drop weeks, and well, maybe they won't, but they'll certainly be here in future weeks to try and close that gap to Alexei Watson. Lots to look forward to then in the next weeks of racing here in the Player1 Sim Gear Super Formula Lights Championship, supported by Everything Simulated. Big thanks to everyone who's been tuned in tonight once again for round 6 coming to you from Snetterton. Unfortunately, the final of our sprint rounds. It's the final feature race next week as well, the final 45-minute race coming to you from Sebring. So I hope that you'll join us then. For now, I've been Ewan O'Leary alongside Reece Gardner with George Cook behind the cameras of this broadcast. We'll all be back in 7 days' time. Hope you will be as well. From all of us, it's goodbye for now.